There you go.
Welcome to Strat Football, the Strat Football Show, Episode 2. We're going to talk spring draft. How's that sound, Tom?
It sounds pretty good, Dennis. Hey, everybody. This is Tom Cook. I'm back with Dennis Crowley. This is only a couple hours after we taped episode 1. I was so pumped up and excited by it that I said, hey, Dennis, spring draft, baby. Let's not wait till next week. You know, we got a weekend full of football games. We still got to do at least part 2 of the show with Derby's preview. Let's get right into some spring draft talk. And, of course, being Strat guys, we just started bullshitting about our teams and stuff first. So
Yes.
I've got some exciting news. My SOMIFA team, the New York Jets, finished 10-6 with not a lot of defensive guys. So, yes, I'm patting myself on the back. I'm being too self-congratulatory. Someone's gonna someone's gonna someone's gonna kick me right in the nads in the playoffs. I think about 43-7, and then they're like, "How's that for your self-congratulatory, Tom?" But that's all right. I had a good year.
No, you've done a
Uh,
good job. You're getting your team, which is probably a 500 team at best, into the playoffs is huge. I think
yeah,
that you've done a great job.
thanks. So
For sure.
the good news is I got a bye. I won the
Nice.
tiebreaker with Buffalo and Minnesota, and I will be the number 5 seed. So
Now
I got to buy with a team that only got 3 players on defense, 5 or better.
sweet.
And I was
So you said
outscored. I was outscored. I was outscored by 14 points, and I got to buy for the season. But go ahead.
Oh, this is just like when you read a book and you pronounce the names differently. You
Uh,
spelled out the league name Somifa. I just say Somifa. So
I
do you
say
ever say so? Do you say Somifa, or you just spell it out every time?
I say SOMIFA, and Somifa sounds crazy to me. When I look like we all know we don't really talk voice in Strat football, the Strat football online community. I'd like to see us start doing that. We had a lot of fun playing a game, talking voice tonight. I think maybe we can get some other guys into that and start something new. But when I first time heard you say Somifa and like Somsfa, I was like, what the hell is he talking about?
I just say the word
And
Somspa, Somifa. Well,
and it,
SSFA is kind of hard to pronounce
yeah,
as a league.
Sfa, Sfa,
No, so that one I skip. But autumn
yeah.
wind, frozen tundra, I just sounded out.
Yeah, no, I don't even say autumn wind. I say AUTU. No, of course I say autumn wind. Yes, but yeah, but no, but the acronym ones, I'll usually go for the abbreviations. But also MIFA sounds like I don't know. I
No,
feel
but
like that's
even
something I
guys,
order.
even
That's
even
something I'm
guys
gonna
in
order
autumn
in
wind.
like.
Oh, go ahead.
That's something I'm gonna order in like a fancy coffee shop or something. I'll take a large
Look, it
MIFA,
has the
please.
vowels. It has the vowels in the right place,
It
so
does.
that's why it lends to being pronounced. Like
But what
I
about
hear
SOMSFA? You say SOMSFA or something like that.
Somsfa. It sounds close enough. It has a vowel on the
What the
first part and a vowel at the end.
hell?
So it's
Anyway,
shaky. Huh?
Battle Royale. I need a rematch this summer. I got
Bring
screwed
it
last
on.
year. I didn't know that the zeros were 3 points. I had my precious spreadsheets. I would have taken that Michigan offensive line. And that
I'm,
championship
a,
game would have been a different story.
I'm gonna have to
I,
start nicknaming you the spreadsheet king because you
yeah,
were all about the
well,
spreadsheets.
they're very rudimentary spreadsheets. I shudder to think what someone like NFL Ed has, but they've helped me out a lot. Want to know the first game that I ever used any kind of spreadsheet in? You want to know what the first game I used any kind of spreadsheet in was?
Playoff game,
SSFA
maybe.
SSFA championship game a couple years ago
Nice.
Against Nathan, and all I did was a running play spreadsheet. That was the first thing I did because it's easiest to do.
Okay.
And from looking at that spreadsheet, Jonathan Stewart used to always get great cards. He might get a real good one next year, by the way. But from looking at that spreadsheet, I realized that my best play against Nathan was like a linebucker with Jonathan Stewart that was going to average like 8.6 yards a carry on like wrong with no men, but I had a good pass. I had a real good team. He had a real good team. He got screwed. Joe Flacco got injured. We play injuries in that league. He got injured in the early, about 8 or 9 minutes to go in the game when he had the ball like down 2 and
Oh
was
man.
trying to drive for like the game-winning field goal. I think Mark Bolger on his last legs was his backup. Not a terrible card, but not a good card. And I think he got to like around midfield, but couldn't get any further. He had a real good kicker, and I think with Flacco, he probably would have had a good chance to at least try like a 2 to 8, 11 to 12 field goal maybe, or something to win it. So I don't want to. And actually, in those same playoffs, Tony Romo got injured for Renee,
Mm,
and he had no chance because Romo was a big part of that. Well, look, your starting quarterback always is, but he really relied a lot on Romo in that team. And so I don't want to put an asterisk next to that championship. I'll take the championship, but but I don't think either one of the two guys are too happy with that. But I like the injuries. I like the injuries in Ed's leagues. We have guys get injured for the rest of the game. I feel like it adds an extra element. And I feel also like it tells you, listen, you can't go all in for any year if you're overly reliant upon a quarterback or running back, because in the playoffs you get that wrong injury, DeMarco Murray or whoever it's going to be next year, and you're out of luck. So you need to build a team that can.
Yeah, but that's what you want people to do. You want people to make that extra trade to go for it this year, and if they can't, why do you want things moving? You want things shaking. You want people to make a move. You want them to feel like they're, like you said we were talking earlier, you didn't trade for that 5 nose tackles, Sion Poucha, and it wound up costing you in the playoffs. Now, obviously there was already injuries in that league, but if you stopped making the trade solely due to injuries, then you missed out on that key piece. Now, I don't think people would not make a trade or would stop themselves from making a trade because of the rule set, but I think that we should do everything we can to encourage movement. Trades are good for leagues. Activity is good for leagues. So
I agree. I agree with that, and I think I learned my lesson. But I think also that team has got a core that was going to be good for a few years, with Manning and Marshawn Lynch and these other guys and good guys on defense. So if you have a team that's got a bunch of guys who are going to be good for a few years, it's probably and can possibly win a championship without too much of a stretch of the imagination. I do think it is good to make some moves for the year. I think I learned my lesson a little bit with that team. I regret not making that.
Definitely. I've already seen
trade. And this year, I'm making moves. I'm giving up those draft picks. I'm not going to let a 0-8 play outside linebacker and try and cover Darius Green or whoever gets him or whoever's going to be that blocking back.
No, and the trades you've made so far have been really good value. Get those 5 outside linebackers, and give up 3rd, 4th round picks, and fill those holes before the draft. So when your picks come up, you don't have to go out and reach for the 4-3, 28-year-old linebacker just to fill that hole and get rid of that 0.
Yeah, but you know me, I still love my draft picks. I still love drafting those young players. That's what I'm all about. Anyone who knows, if you've been in, I'm not going to say it. If you've been in SOMIFA with, if you've been in SOMIFA with me,
SOMIFA, say it. You can do it.
If you've been in SOMIFA with me, if you've been in SSFA with me, I'm Tom New York in the forum. I'm all about the rookies. I'm all about the draft. I love writing the mock drafts. Guys think I'm out of my mind, I think. I'm doing 3 versions of a mock draft for a 24-man league. But I love it.
We love
I get a lot of views. Who was my Todd McShay? Was that you or Nathan who said they were going to be my Todd McShay to my Mel Kiper?
Not me, but I'm good with whoever wants to fill that role. The more the better. The more write-ups we have, the more recaps, the more trades, the more activity. That makes the league fun.
So we're gonna look at the SSFA. Sorry, well, not just the SSFA, which we're both in. But we're going to look at spring drafts, which are coming up from the fall draft. But first, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about trading for a quarterback.
Yeah, one of the things that people talk about is
you've already traded for Russell Wilson in every single league that you're in.
And that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, because in SOMIFA, at the beginning of the
Russell Wilson, if I'm going to do this with you,
at least once a show, put it that way. But anyway, it doesn't matter who
Wilson segment. Go ahead.
Yes, Russell Wilson, brought to you by Russell Wilson, starring Russell Wilson. So, in SOMIFA, drafted before the season started. At that point, we weren't even sure if he was going to start. He was still battling with Matt Flynn. The trade.
Oh, hold on, what are you talking about? Now, are you talking about when you traded for the pick that ended up becoming Russell Wilson? No, because we drafted SOMIFA we drafted after their rookie year. So when we drafted Russell Wilson,
why did I get him so cheap? Okay, so anyway, you're right. It had to be after this rookie year. I'm thinking of another league where we had 3 keepers that we picked up beforehand. So so let's go back to the original concept.
Are you saying in that other league that you draft? I was in a basketball league like that many years ago. Don't play Strat basketball anymore, but I was in a Strat basketball league with a bunch of guys from the Midwest, and play by mail at that time. It wasn't even the computer game yet. Really, it was just getting going, and we would have our draft after the NBA draft. So before guys had even stepped on the floor in the NBA, we were having our draft. I remember I drafted Kobe Bryant like number 4 He was only like the number 14 pick in the NBA out of high school, number 13. I drafted number 4 overall, and they were all like laughing at, like, what are you doing taking this kid number 4? They weren't laughing a few years later when I had Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, and Steve
Nice.
Nash.
Nice. For sure, for sure.
Yeah, so you saying
Okay,
you saying that?
Okay, so first of all, Somifa. So the trade I made for Russell Wilson and Somifa, I had the 14th or 16th pick.
You
I
traded
traded
that to get him, yeah.
I traded that pick plus Thomas Decoud, who was a 6 at the time, to move up to 3, where I drafted Russell Wilson. Now I had already talked to the guys that 1 and 2, and I knew Luck and RG3 were going first, which everybody in their right mind pretty much had them in that order at that time. So now fast forward to SSFA, when it came time after 2 years now of Russell Wilson doing what he's doing and RG3 getting hurt a little bit. In order to get up to that spot, I had the 8th pick. I had 1-8. I gave up 1-8, my first round pick the next year, which is this year, and Robert Quinn. That's a crazy price to move up from 1-8 to 1-3 to get Russell Wilson.
So you gave up the number 8 overall, your number 1 next year, and Robert Quinn to move up to number 2 and get Russell Wilson.
Yes, and that number 1 pick became Ryan Tannehill. So you can think, and because this team was a rebuilding team and needed a young quarterback too.
I think that's the Saints, I think, or somebody.
Right. So he didn't have
much job rebuilding that team.
He has. He's done a great job. Lots of good trades. But anyway, so for what he could have had for Russell Wilson, he got Tannehill, Quinn, and I don't know, the 20th pick this year. So
nice.
At the time, it's a decent package. But at the time, it looked like I was way overpaying. Like, that's way too much to give up. Even I had a hard time doing it, as much as I love Russell Wilson. But looking back, who would you rather have? Quinn and Tannehill? I wouldn't trade Russell Wilson for Quinn Tannehill in a number 1. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, but you're overlooking a significant part of this deal. You wouldn't trade Russell Wilson for anybody. You're such a Russell Wilson fan, which I understand. You're a Seahawks fan who's done great. You know, but I'll tell you, as a guy, as an outside
my point is, how much is too much to give up for a franchise quarterback?
As an outside guy, I would much rather be on the Ryan Tannehill side of that deal if I was rebuilding. Absolutely. Because Russell Wilson, it's hard. I think it's hard. I think it's hard to have a rational conversation with you about Russell Wilson because you love the guy so much, which I understand. It's like if I was a Colts fan, you probably couldn't tell me anything about Andrew Luck. I'd be like, what are you kidding me?
Well, let's just take the fandom out of it. What if it was, we swap franchises? Would you really look at my team now? Would you really rather have Tannehill, Quinn, and a first-round pick this year than Russell Wilson?
Well, no,
you're the owner of the Seahawks. You're my team. I've got your team. We swap franchises. You could undo that trade if you want. Would you do it?
Well, now, 2 things I would say. Number 1, that guy's rebuilding, okay? So if I'm rebuilding, I'll take Tannehill, Quinn, and the number 20 over Russell Wilson. I definitely would.
Look at the other moves he's made. You can just swap out those 3 things.
That was awful, though.
But look at it now. Even if it wasn't awful, what would you rather have?
For his team, I'd much rather have I'd much rather have his side of the deal. And to be honest, probably for your team too. I think Tannehill isn't that bad. See, the thing is, I don't know. I think Russell Wilson's gonna have a really nice card next year. I'm looking at his stats right now. 63% completed, 20 touchdowns, a minuscule 1.5 interception percentage, and you can't overlook he's going to have a great must-run card next year. 7.2 average. That's much better than he had last year. That's more along the lines of vintage like Michael Vick territory. Yeah. So, so he's going to have a great card next year, much more of a championship quarterback next year than Ryan Tannehill. But I just feel like.
But what's going to happen with Tannehill? He's older. Remember, he came into the league as a 26-year-old or 25-year-old,
okay,
not as a 23, 24-year-old. He almost lost his job earlier this year. That's always going to be over his head. Talk to Fish fan on the forum. Does he really think he's the answer at quarterback? I think he's got a chance to be, but he's right now, as an average NFL quarterback.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, but see, we're talking about Strat. I think Russell Wilson next year is going to have a real good card. I'm not convinced that Russell Wilson is going to really be a top, 6 Strat quarterback for 3, 4, 5 years running, because he hasn't been yet. I mean, next year's the first card that we're hoping for, like that, and maybe because the Seahawks run the ball so well, he won't get a great card next year. I think he will get a real good card next year. I do, but is it
But
going
it's
to be
not
as
even
good as?
about the card. It's about the peace of mind. For the next 15 years, I'm not going to have to chase that quarterback in the first round. I'm not going to have to go again and again like you
But
did the
I
same
don't,
thing with your quarterbacks.
I
Vince,
don't know.
try to get
I don't,
Vince Young, try to get, you know,
Sanchez and Russell back in the day. Yeah, I learned
yeah,
my lesson with those guys.
yeah, Jamarcus Russell, Sanchez.
And that's it. Three
If
guys
you
in 4 years.
if you miss on a first round pick or a quarterback and you have to keep chasing him, that hurts your franchise just as much as a lopsided trade.
Yeah, but
Even
I would say don't chase them while you're building your team. Build your team. Take the best available player, and yeah, take a chance on a quarterback when you can. At that time, I was not doing a good job drafting and GMing. That was 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I learned a lot from that. I stopped chasing the franchise quarterback, and then ended up building a team that had enough depth to trade for an opportunity when it came about. Now, admittedly, the guy made a bad deal with me when he gave me the number 1 overall. That was going to be Andrew Luck for all the stuff that I gave him, and I gave him quite a bit. But I would have given him almost my whole team at that point. So
that's the point I'm trying to make.
I don't put Russell Wilson in that category. Now, if you tell me it's Andrew Luck, I would tell you you could trade your whole team for Andrew Luck, and you're probably making a good trade.
Even if you're rebuilding, that's my point.
I
don't think there's ever. And again, you're not convinced on Russell Wilson. I am convinced on Russell Wilson. But the point is, if you have a chance to get a franchise quarterback, the guy that's going to be your starting quarterback and is going to produce championship potential cards. I can win a championship with Russell Wilson at quarterback in a 2014 draft league, and I already have.
Yeah, but guys can win a championship with a lot of different quarterbacks. I mean, NFL Ed's won championships with Carson Palmer throwing interception cards. So
how much better would he have done with Russell Wilson?
Oh, what he would have won the championship? Oh, yeah, he would have won the championship by more points. He still got the championship. Does it matter?
But I'm just saying, you're in, you're out. He's, you can't continue to do that. You can overachieve for a little while, but my point is that to get that peace of mind, to get that decade worth of no doubt about it, this guy is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the Strat League.
Okay, but if we're talking about Russell Wilson, I'm just not sure that he's definitely that guy. I mean, look, Russell Wilson has done everything right so far. He's incredibly heady. He's got a great arm. He makes good decisions. He gets a great
it's not even that. It's just about the way he conducts himself. The way he works at it.
All right, but
he's not going to just go out and make one of
Johnny
the
Manziel.
Yeah, it's not going to Manziel you. It's not even that. He's not going to Joe Flacco you, where he gets a great contract and then, his regular season just doesn't add up anymore.
Well, do you know for sure that if Russell Wilson, well, I'll forget about that for a second. But the thing about here's what I'm saying: Russell Wilson, yes, he's done everything right for the Seahawks. He's been very good so far. He had an excellent season this year, okay? But he's also been on a team with a tremendous defense. He's been on a team with a tremendous running game, okay? Now, he's up for a new contract probably after this year, I think, or whatever, okay?
Yeah, they'll have less talent around him.
So my concern is, I've got a couple of concerns. In 4 years, okay, when the Seahawks probably don't have nearly as good a defense as they have now because we'll see if they're going to sustain, like even teams like Pittsburgh and Baltimore, great franchises haven't sustained, okay? Year in, year out. They have a couple of down years and stuff like that, right? Pittsburgh had 2 years in a row. All right, so in 4 years from now, is Seattle's defense going to be top 5 in the NFL, okay? And look at what you guys are getting, like 6 points a game for the last 5, 6 games. Marshawn Lynch is getting older. There's, stuff like that. In 4 years, what's the running game going to be like? So if it gets to the point that the rest of the team around him is an average defense and an average running game, is Russell Wilson going to be a guy that can put up the kind of numbers that makes Seattle very successful, that continues to not throw interceptions, and that develops the kind of stats in terms of completion percentage and low interceptions and yardage that give him a great strat card? Running, guys slow down a little after they've been in the league a few years. Running quarterbacks, a lot of them, is he going to start getting hit a little more? And I know he does a great job with all that stuff now, but he's also in a great situation. So those are my concerns about him. I'm not sure he is the franchise guy, okay, in terms of that for Strat. In the NFL, yeah, I'd give him the money. We'll see what happens, you know. But I mean, if you,
Well, the point I was making though was just about the franchise guy. It doesn't matter
okay.
if you.
But you got to give me a guy. I got to be because I mean it depends.
Okay,
on the guy.
let's do this for your Russell Wilson non-belief. Give me.
Not that I'm not a non-believer.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no, no, no. That's
those are
fine.
concerns. So the
Give
concerns.
me concerns. Absolutely. Give me the top 3 quarterbacks outside of Andrew Luck from the last 5 drafts. Who would you rather have ahead of Russell Wilson from the 2009 draft forward?
Well, even if I wouldn't, first of all, I don't know those drafts off the top. Well, first of all, I don't know those drafts off the top of my head. Okay.
Well, just think of young players. What other young quarterbacks would you rather have besides Russell Wilson?
Let's see. But that doesn't mean that I think Russell Wilson is going to be the guy for 10 years. Maybe it's just at a time right now where there aren't second and third year quarterbacks who I feel that strongly about. I don't know. All right, but I'm looking at the I'm looking at the standings, and I'll tell you guys. All right, Matt Ryan for Strat, I know is going to get great cards. For the next 5, 6, 7 years, let's say. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Let me go through. I mean, there's not that many guys because a lot of guys are in their 30s who are playing really well. I mean, you want me to discount? You want me to take out of the equation Aaron Rodgers, Tony Romo, Tom Brady, Big Ben.
Let's put it another way.
And Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, Phillips. I can't count any of those guys because they're 35 years old.
You can count them. We're starting a brand new league.
Okay.
From now for the next 10 years.
Okay.
Who's your top 3 quarterbacks?
Andrew Luck would be number 1.
Outside of Andrew Luck and Aaron Rodgers, those are obviously no-brainers 1 and 2. Give me 3 other guys.
How come we're not allowed to include the best players in the league? Huh? I said, how come we're not allowed to include some of the best players in the league? No, Russell Wilson is right there as a guy. If you took Russell Wilson third overall in a league, 3rd or 4th overall in a league starting from scratch right now, I would not have a problem with that. But
I'm just asking who would you take? Who would you take in the top? I'm trying to get the top 2 guys out of there, no doubt about it. After those guys, who else is there?
Well, you have to understand, I'm a guy who does an awful lot of preparation and an awful lot of thought. You ask me right off the top of my head, I just got thrust into a draft room with a number 3 overall, and Luck and Rodgers go 1 and 2. Who am I taking right now? I don't know. I mean, how old? I mean, because also, I might not worry about 10 years. I'm not worried about 3. I'm not worried about 3, 4, 5 years.
Russell Wilson is a franchise quarterback.
I'm not. I think he's a franchise quarterback for the NFL. I'm not convinced.
I think he is for Strat too.
I'm not convinced that he is a Strat quarterback. That when the rest of that team, if the rest of that team starts taking a step back, that he's still going to be the man. I would take Matt Ryan over him right now if I was starting the league. I don't know how old Matt Ryan is. How old is Matt Ryan?
I don't have a problem with that. If you like Matt Ryan better, but my point is, he is a franchise quarterback for Strat. He is, because if you can't give me 5 other people, he's going to be one of the top 5 picks. That's just the way it is.
I don't have a problem with it being a top 5 pick. That doesn't mean he's gold in the bank. I was in a league where I joined SOMIFA in year 2 where they did the expansion. Okay, Steve McNair had just been a co-MVP in the NFL. Okay. He was the second pick. He was the second pick overall in that league, and he only got 1 more good card after that. So you don't know what's going to happen. He was a guy who happened to fall off a cliff, and still played in the NFL for a few more years, but he wasn't a great quarterback anymore after that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a couple years ago, you would have said no doubt about it. Matthew Stafford, 5,000 yards, 40 whatever touchdowns. Now, only 2-3 years later, still a young guy. And we would have a lot of questions about Matthew Stafford right now as the number 4, number 5 overall pick. A couple years ago, we would have said, "Oh no, we want Matthew Stafford." So things change.
Things do change, but I just think that Russell Wilson in particular has a low risk factor for those types of problems. And yes, you're right. He doesn't have the great defense, but I can't wait till his defense isn't great. I can't wait till his running game isn't great. What are you going to say when he does it then? What are you going to say then, Tom?
That's an odd thing for a Seahawks fan to say. I can't wait till my team is worse.
I can't wait. No, I can't wait till you see what this guy's capable of.
I have a lot of.
We've already gone half an hour, and we haven't even got to the the spring draft stuff. That's what people are tuning in for.
Okay.
The dozen or so.
Point,
But,
if we bring up Russell Wilson, we're going to go crazy.
That's right. That's right. I just want to talk about franchise quarterbacks, and really, if you have the right guy, whoever you believe that to be,
sure,
there's not really a price. There's not really too high a price you can pay.
Well, let me ask you this question now. Well, I'm not done with Russell Wilson. I got to ask you this question. Okay, his first 2 cards. Okay, have they been great Strat quarterback cards?
They've been top 10 in my book.
Top 10 in your book.
Yeah. Like 10th,
right.
11th, 12th. That's for a young guy, for a 23-year-old, for a 24-year-old.
No. I'm not asking you for a young.
Take that.
They've been excellent for a young quarterback.
He hasn't put up a bad year yet.
Yeah, I know. I think next year's card might be a card. Look at the stats that really steps up, especially in that division with Arizona's defense and the Rams' defense. Just for argument's sake, NFL Ed has him as a number 13 quarterback in the current set behind Sam Bradford.
And I have him a few spots higher. I know you do. And obviously, when you're talking about long term,
of course, but I'm just saying.
Nobody's going to take Sam Bradford over, even in a 1-year thing. Those are all subjective. Even as Ed says, they're all subjective. Sure. And I would rather have Russell Wilson. That must-run card on 3rd down and 6 is like gold. I mean, you hit that.
I used to use Steve Young back in the day. I love those running quarterbacks and when you have good pass blocking and you get 3rd and short, it is really something. I agree with that, But I'm just saying, NFL Ed's pretty good. He's not a top 10. This is not a top 10 card in NFL.
It's always hard.
And hold on, but let me read you 10 cards that are pretty damn good. That you might say, you know what, Russell Wilson might not be a top 10 card with the card we're using right now. Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Phillip Rivers, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Tony Romo, Andrew Luck, Big Ben, Nick Foles. You got Josh McCown in there, but let's leave him out for a minute. I mean, those guys all have pretty damn good cards. So it's not a knock on Russell Wilson. A lot of quarterbacks playing well right now. I think his card next year might be a great card.
He'll get his due. Don't worry.
His
cards will check. It takes Strat time to catch up to players like that. I just think
I think you're right about that. And let me say this. I think I am generally pretty skeptical when it comes to almost any young player. Until the guy puts up the numbers, I'm not going to tell you I know this guy is going to be X, Y, and Z. I might have a strong feeling for it, and I'll tell you this, I would not be surprised at all if Russell Wilson does everything you say he's going to do and more. I would not be surprised if 3 years from now Russell Wilson has a 70% completion percentage, throws 34 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and is a great quarterback statistically, and I think he might have a great card next year. I'm just saying I'm a guy who anybody, it doesn't have to be Russell Wilson, it could be any other player you want to name, that I want to see the numbers. I'm not going to sit there and tell you I know Sammy Watkins is going to have 90 catches for 1,400 yards next year or 3 years from now because he looks real good. I think he might do it, but until they do it, I'm not going to say that I know he can do it.
Fair enough.
So it's not so much anti-Russell Wilson as it's I want to see, and I've seen an awful lot from Russell. He's a great player. He's a championship player. He does everything the right way. He makes tremendous decisions. He has uncanny instincts for the game. He's the opposite of Geno Smith, who we have here in New York. So I would not be surprised for Russell to do everything you say, but he has to do it before I say I know he's going to do it.
Yeah, but sometimes if you wait that long, you'll never be able to get him. I mean, that's the thing.
Sure. I don't have a problem with a guy trading for Russell Wilson. You asked me about that deal. If it was me, if I was rebuilding, I'd rather have been on the other guy's side of it. I think there's no position more important than quarterback, and I think even with the extra umph you get from Quinn and a first-round pick, Ryan Tannehill is nowhere near as sure a thing as Russell Wilson. Absolutely not. I agree. But I probably would have flipped Robert Quinn for a whole bunch of assets too. I'm trying to turn it into a 5, 6, 7, 8 player asset deal. You know what I'm saying? Because I need 22 guys, for a football team. I like to build for the long term. I admit that it's probably not the formula that produces the most championships, and you can't take coaching out of the equation. You're an excellent coach, right? You play in 12 leagues, you have a lot of success. You take that same trade. Well, look, it's draft football. If you can't coach, you're gonna lose. If you're a good coach, you can overachieve to win more. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's played part of it. Why Scott?
You might have won that championship with Nick Foles. That doesn't mean that doesn't make what I'm saying. Doesn't make Russell Wilson's card better than Nick Foles' card.
No, I think. Well, Nick Foles' card's excellent, but long term, who are you going to want? You're going to
Of
want Russell
course,
Wilson.
absolutely. I agree with you that outside of Andrew Luck, there is not a young quarterback in the NFL right now who looks as good for the long term as Russell Wilson.
And doesn't that say something about our expectations have been raised because of Andrew Luck and because of Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
When guys come into the league, who is number 3? When guys come into the league,
it's a distant number 3.
They get a flash in the pan like Robert Griffin III. He might never be the same. Then you get guys who don't even get the flash.
Sure.
Geno Smith and the Buffalo quarterbacks. His name escaping me. E.J. Manuel got benched. These guys get drafted highly in the first, second round.
Jake Locker, Blaine Gabbert,
and they just never do anything. So
the Sanchez.
Yeah, and I think I told you before Russell Wilson came into the league, before he was even, before he even played in the NFL, that Football Outsiders ranking of of college quarterbacks, he was off the charts. He was ahead of Andrew Luck and RG3, but they just discounted it because it was such a big, it was a weird thing for them that a quarterback that transferred from one school to another school had this huge, DVOA. They were just like, whoa, but this one can't be real.
Sure, but Pro Football Almanac, which I read also, and I believe in, it's same, from Football Outsiders, their numbers were pretty strong on Geno Smith. I understand that Russell's numbers were off the charts.
Which publication is that?
The same one from Football Outsiders, Pro Football Almanac.
Okay, I didn't see.
Their numbers on Geno and Matt Barkley were very strong. Okay, the Russells were off the charts, but I'm just saying, just in terms of being strong. So I mean, some of those stats need to be borne out. I love Football Outsiders. I love their publication, Pro Football Almanac. I think on some positions we don't know yet how strong they are predictively. I have not been thrilled with their running back and wide receiver projections in recent years. I think they've been stronger at quarterback. I think Russell Wilson's success speaks to that. But I think they missed a couple. I've only been looking at that for a couple of years, so I need a larger sample. Like again, I'm a show me guy. I'm not from Missouri or from New York, but he's still going to show me.
Again, a lot of that too is where the player lands and the type of coaching he gets and the type of person he is. Is he going to work hard? Is he going to put the hours in? And that's another reason why I feel so confident in Russell Wilson.
You could not ask for a football player. You couldn't ask for a quarterback to do more from the head up and to do more from doing the right thing than St. Russell of Seattle, Washington. And I understand if I was a Seahawk fan, that I would feel the same way. He's no Mark Sanchez. What are you going to do?
Okay, so let's get on to the draft stuff. We had to do that Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck thing in one of our podcasts, so it's done. It's out of the way.
I have a feeling it's not going to be the last time.
I will try to make it not so lengthy, and if it comes up again.
Well, you got to keep me in check because I'm known for going on and on. You see how I post? I talk the same way I post. I have a 3-page post on a 17-14 game in the middle of the season. So, when I speak, it's going to be long-winded. But go ahead.
Okay, so let's dig in. Tom's done a lot of work preparing for the SSFA draft. I haven't done quite as much, but we have a list of players by position that we're going to talk about, and we're going to get Tom's. We're going to pick his brain a little bit and see why he likes certain guys at the top, and we'll go from there. So
sounds good.
Quarterbacks. That's our first tab. Or you want to go quarterbacks or big board? You want to do the first round first?
No, my big board is blank on this spreadsheet. So what we're going to do is we'll go position by position, and you just ask me about the players.
Okay. So
now keep in mind, I have not completed thoroughly my spring preparation, but I have gone through and put the guys near the top of each position that I like, and I've got about a week to do that. I might be joining another spring league. For those who don't know, SSFA is a 2014 league run by NFL Ed. It's the spring equivalent of SOMIFA. There should be a lot of other spring leagues like Spring Fever, and I'm sure others that you know of, Dennis, that'll be drafting coming up. We thought it'd be good to take a look at players in advance of those drafts. I tend to play in 24 to 30 team leagues. If you're in a smaller team league, you got to adjust, and of course the defensive requirements of your league may cause you to adjust as well. So
okay, so quarterbacks, what a wasteland. This is not a good group.
No.
We got Geno Smith, Mike Glennon, Matt Barkley, Dominic Davis. Well, actually, we can stop right there.
Exactly. Yeah.
EJ Manuel should be up a little higher. The
Well,
coaching
yeah,
change might help
just,
him.
yeah. Well, but just I'm not a fan of the guy, so I was like, what? Oh, like you said, it's a wasteland. So on this spreadsheet, I was just like, you know what? I'm not drafting most of these guys, so
Right.
I didn't even care to move EJ Manuel around. But I mean, Geno Smith, I think we all think he's going to be a bum, like he already is.
So
EJ
what round?
Manuel,
What round would you take Geno Smith?
I wouldn't take Geno Smith.
Fourth round, fifth round. Nobody's taken him yet. You wouldn't take him?
Seventh round. Seventh round of the 2014 league. I would take Geno Smith if I really could use a young quarterback, and I just felt like making.
You have Peyton Manning, not hypothetically. You really do have Peyton Manning. So
I had Peyton Manning in the spring team. Yeah.
You need a replacement. You wouldn't take him earlier than that.
There's only one. All right, I'll tell you who I'd like. Who I like out of the young quarterback, and like is subjective because none of these guys are world beaters. Okay, first of all, we got to say this: I absolutely suck at evaluating young quarterbacks. I like following the young players, but quarterback is my Achilles heel. I suck at it. Okay, I didn't trade for Andrew Luck to pick to get him because I looked at Andrew Luck and said, "Wow, this guy's really great." I said, you know what? I suck at evaluating young quarterbacks. Everyone says this guy's the real deal, so screw it. I'll trade up for to try to get Andrew Luck, and I'll hope that everyone else is right because I don't know what I'm looking at. But having said that, so I had to look for alternative means of finding successful quarterbacks. ESPN, as we know, developed this system, total QBR, total quarterback rating, right?
Right.
Now, they had an article earlier this year where they went back over the last 15 years, retroactively applying their total QBR, and tried to forecast how young quarterbacks did in terms of QBR and how successful they became. And there was a number that they had. I want to say that the number is about 42. And if you're not familiar with the QBR, I'm not an expert in it, but the numbers are about 30 points lower than regular rating or whatever, maybe 40 points lower. But anyway, the numbers are lower. So there was a number that they had, and I think the number was about 42, where if a young quarterback hit that number after his first 20 NFL starts, I think 18 out of 19 of those guys went on to become at least average or above average NFL quarterbacks, what we would call successful, at least Joe Flacco-like, okay? Guys who below that number, I think Joe Flacco himself was the only guy below that number who went on to have a fairly successful career. Of the young quarterbacks in this draft, Mike Glennon actually exceeded those numbers. Mike Glennon was over 42 for his rookie year, and he was in the 50s this year. So based upon that, I would say that I think that Mike Glennon has a chance to become a good NFL quarterback. I don't like Geno Smith. I don't like EJ Manuel. I think Matt Barkley would be interesting to take late and say, well, maybe he'll bounce around somewhere and do something kind of a Ryan Mallett type of a pick. But now Mike Glennon's got a problem, and that his head coach doesn't like him. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't see Mike Glennon bursting on the scene for Tampa Bay this year, but if I needed a young quarterback, he's the only guy in this draft that I would say, you know what, maybe late second round on, depending on the size of your league. So I would say maybe from pick like 51 on, I might consider Mike Glennon if I really needed a young quarterback and I was okay taking a chance on a guy because he's certainly not a sure thing and he doesn't even have a starting job right now, in my opinion. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Mr. Glennon?
I got to give you that was quality analysis there, Tom. I like that. I agree. And I think you shouldn't be worried too much about the coach because this league, you don't do it, you don't get it done. Would it really be surprising if Lovie Smith was looking for work this time next year? Not really. So I think, or even if the way it is now, Josh McCown is the starter, right? He's not getting any younger. And they're trying to bring in Trestman to be his offensive coordinator. Let's just say Trestman is a quarterback whisperer, and he figures out, you know what? He tells Lovie Smith, I'll handle the offense. I'm going with Glennon. Lovie Smith's not going to fight against it. He just wants results. So I could even see him coming out with a good card after the 2015 season.
But, I mean, Josh McCown was terrible this year, and Lovie put him in there late in the season. I mean, every statistic, look at Mike Glennon this year. 57.6 is below average. 57.6, 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, a 7 average gain. Josh McCown, 56.3, 11 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, a 6.7. And he got sacked way more per attempt. And yet Lovey's like, no, I don't like Mike Glennon. So I don't know. And Trestman, if they're going to bring in Trestman, is it because he works so well with Josh McCown? I know they're the offensive coordinator anyway, but
Okay, so even if he does work with McCown, uh, you know, McCown breaks his leg in the preseason, and Glennon's your guy. You just never know. So I wouldn't let
I feel like
coaches
I feel like
dislike
Glennon.
for a player stop you from drafting him.
Well, I feel like Glennon will bounce around and maybe get a chance in a couple of years. I wouldn't take him too high. He's the only quarterback here that I would say, you know what, maybe this guy might be okay. He's with me having Peyton Manning. He's the only guy that I would say, oh, maybe I'll draft Glennon, and by the time Manning retires, maybe Glennon will actually be okay. But there's no one here who we agree it's a wasteland. We probably spent too much time on these bums already. So let's move on to running back and blocking
Let's do
back.
it. All right. So after the season that Le'Veon Bell's had, I am not surprised at all that he's the number one running back on your list. He's just looked dynamic. The only concern I would have is, that injury, that late injury.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's too serious, but if he doesn't come back with the same kind of bounce in his step, running backs, it's such a weird league now. Running backs, you can't count on them for the next decade like you can quarterbacks, but or at least a good quarterback. But you need him.
Yeah,
They're such an important piece.
Yeah, you never know you can count on a running back until you can count on him. You don't
Yeah.
know that AP is AP or that Mojo is Mojo until 3 years have gone by. Now this list was put together before that injury, I believe. But so I mean, right now, yeah, it's a weird draft for running backs in the spring. I think right now there's a lot of backs that I kind of like. But I mean, in terms of, do I think any of these guys is going to be your next perennial 1,400-yard 4.7 guy? Le'Veon will be the guy that I would say is most likely to be that. But I am a little concerned about the injury as well. Having said that, the way he looked, the way he played, I think I take a chance on him. Plus, I think that injury, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's the type of thing that's going to linger. Do you remember what type of injury he has?
He got a hard shot to his knee. I think it's a sprained knee ligament or
That sounds
something.
Scary.
Yeah, but not where he needs surgery or anything like that. He would have played this week according to published reports. If I can sound like an NFL outsider.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go.
We're gonna play a little game called "What Were You Thinking?" I'm gonna read you. I'm gonna read you my notes on a player. Now, look, I follow the young players. I think I do a pretty good job drafting. Nobody is 100%. I miss on plenty of players. Okay, so there's guys that I think are stink or who are going to be good, and guys who I think are going to be good who stink. Okay, so I'm gonna read you a comment on a player. This is from a comment I made back in August.
Okay,
about this player. You're gonna guess who the player at this position.
Ready.
Not a fan of his running style, to be honest. Very slow to accelerate. Has nice top-end speed, but I really don't see him being a big-time back. I know he had a successful rookie season, but we'll see. I will let someone else draft him. Who is that?
Le'Veon Bell.
It's Eddie Lacy.
Oh, Eddie Lacy.
Eddie
Lacy has top-end speed? Even, I don't think he ever had top high-end speed. He's just a bruiser.
Well, when he gets going is what I mean. And when he gets going, he looks like he's moving pretty well, but he's a little slow to accelerate. But Eddie Lacy is interesting to me because last year I was not an Eddie Lacy fan. I mean, he did what he did, but I felt like, you know what? He's a big guy. It takes him. I'm not a fan of guys who take forever to get from 0 to 60. I think too many times people look at these combine numbers. They're worried about speed. How fast can the guy go? It's really, I think quickness is much more important. How long did it take you to get from 0 to 60? I mean, right. Herschel Walker, I think, was a good example. I know he played in the USFL. I watched a lot of those games. Herschel was a guy who, once he got going, wow, he was real fast. But he was not a guy that accelerated quickly. I mean, he took it forever. It seemed like to get through a hole. Not to mention with that straight up and down style. Whereas a guy like Freeman McNeil would never have a run longer than 34 yards because they could catch him, but he was really quick to get to the second level. So you'd rather have that other type of back, I think, in terms of overall success. So Lacy, I was worried about Lacy because if you're going to play with Aaron Rodgers and the type of quarterback card that Aaron Rodgers gets every year, you need to put up, 4.5, 4.7, 4.85 yard average to get a good card, a real good card. And I was just worried that Eddie Lacy looked more like a 4.1, 4.2 type of guy. Now this year he had a real good year. He came on really strongly, I think, in the second half of the season. I think he did end up with over a 4.5 yard average.
Yeah,
Um,
4.6.
so I don't know. What do you think about Eddie Lacy? If you had a pretty good team, okay, a bunch of guys 28 years old, whatever, you're not really rebuilding, got a decent quarterback, and you need running back. Are you the first pick of the draft? You going to go for Eddie Lacy?
No, I'd go for Le'Veon Bell, but I think that Le'Veon Bell and Eddie Lacy will go in the top 10 of the SSFA draft. I think that they both, proven themselves as much as you can as a running back, and I think that they're going to produce quality cards. Lacy will have 2 really good cards, and Bell will have just a fantastic card next year.
Yeah, do you see where I put them in my mock draft?
I did not. I'm going to pull it up. I do see them that they're 1 and 2 in your running backs tab, which is good.
They're also 1 and 2 in my mock draft.
Overall?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think they'll go 1 and 2 overall. I mean, I haven't looked at the team needs, but I guess it wouldn't surprise me.
But both of those teams need running backs from what I recall.
But there's some coaches that just say, I'm never going to take that running back, with my top pick if I have a top 10 pick. There's some coaches that just won't do it.
But I think what's interesting about the spring, and this is really relevant to when you talked about franchise quarterbacks. If you're drafting in any spring league, you've got 2 years of work to go on the guy. Right. So I do feel like it's really hard to get a good young quarterback in a spring league in the draft if you don't have the first or second pick in the draft. Because by that time most of the good quarterbacks nowadays have already shown what they're going to do. You can't take a guy, 8, 9, 10, like maybe Phillip Rivers would have been when he started out his career on the bench, and say, I'm going to take this guy and I think he's going to be good, because by year 2 nowadays all these guys have played a lot.
Yeah.
The best thing you're going to do is get Jake Locker and hope that he, gets healthy and straightens out, which he hasn't really done. He's lost his job to Zach Mettenberg.
The latest flavor that's going to be the same as him in 2-3 years. He's just not going to pan out. He's going to be out of the league.
That's right.
Or at least are headed that way.
So I think if you're looking at Eddie Lacy right now, you're going to say this guy had 2 good years in a row. Now, I'm not in love with his rookie card. I don't think it's that good a card. I think I'll have a better card next year. But you feel like, hey, this is a guy who I think will at least be Edgar and James-like in terms of getting a good card. Now, league size matters here. I just finished my first season in AW, Autumn Wind. 30-team league, those running back with a whole bunch of carries is actually valuable. Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, classic Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, not what he is now, is a lot more valuable in Autumn Wind than he ever was in a 2014 league.
Yeah, he helped the Dallas Cowboys, Mark Lepage's team, Cowboys Def on the forum, win a title. So
because
I see that.
In that 30-team league, it's hard to find enough guys so you can run the ball more than 30 times a game. So if you have that one guy that can carry it 28 times before he gets tired, that's worth a lot. And so I think Eddie Lacy.
And you know what's funny? This is a funny thing about a guy like Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, is that when you're lining up against them on defense, they don't have that kind of Jamal Charles, Marshawn Lynch, Adrian Peterson type fear that make you call run. So you'll just keep calling pass. And as an offensive coach, if somebody's just going to keep calling pass and you have Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, and you can run guest wrong 80% of the time, that's just like cake. I mean, you will move the chains over and over again.
Absolutely. That's why you got to mix in the run call every now and then. You can't really play that way. You can't play. If you play 90% pass defense, you're usually not going to go too far in the postseason. Of course, in the postseason, you're usually going to face some pretty good running backs as well. But that is also a difference in league. Like Eddie Lacy in a 30-team league, I'll take him any day of the week. Eddie Lacy in a 2014 league, all right, pretty good, but he's not going to get that Jamal Charles, vintage C.J. Spiller, Adrian Peterson type of wow factor on the wrong that scares you. You know what I'm saying?
Well, again, sometimes you can say that, but sometimes if the defenses that you're facing, like if you're in the NFC West, the last few years, even with a 4.1 card like Marshawn Lynch had last year, you're going to get a good card. It just sometimes it'll work out for you. But I see what you're saying with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to make you have to really earn that.
Well, that's the thing. Marshawn Lynch is getting cards not only in that division, but on a team that runs the ball more than they passes it, as opposed to as opposed to Green Bay, where they pass the ball predominantly. Let's see. If I look at Eddie Lacy in my Strat file here, but Le'Veon Bell, I think, is more of a type of guy, even though he played with Big Ben, that might get a real explosive card next year. But maybe playing with Big Ben, he's going to be a candidate to get a really disappointing card, and guys are going to get angry when they see it. If they already have him, I don't know.
I can't see that, especially when you factor in his receiving. My goodness.
Oh yeah,
he had 83 catches for 854 yards, 48 long. You're going to be able to tear defenses up.
Yeah. So. No, he should. I think he will get a great card. You never know. We've seen strange things. We never know. I mean, Eddie Lacy's wrong card this year. He's got yellows here, average 7 yards on the line book, 875 on the off tackle. It's not a bad card, but I think next year's card will be better. I think he'll average 4.1 last year as a rookie.
Now speaking of running backs that can catch the ball, the next running back in your list is Andre Ellington, and you have him going number 6 overall in your mock for SSFA.
That's correct.
I kind of see him slipping to the bottom of the first round, maybe even out of the first round, and it's that 3.3 yards per carry running card running season that he put up this year. I think that's going to make people a little bit hesitant. And yes, he'll have a good receiving card, but people might look at that and say, "Gosh, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to move the ball next year with his running card."
Well, you got to realize a couple of things. Number one, when I do my mock drafts, I'm not saying these are the guys that I think these teams should take, and I'm not rating these guys in place of where I put them. I look at the guy's team, I look at his needs, I look at the coach's history, and I say I think that this coach coaching this team is going to draft this guy here. I also feel like this is not a great draft. This is not a sexy, exciting draft based off of last year's guys. I have concerns about Eddie Lacy's ability to get great cards every year, especially the 2014 league. Le'Veon Bell now has got the injury, and you don't get much of a card as a rookie, but I still would like him a lot. And then all the other guys. There's no DeMarcus Ware here. There's no, J.J. Watt here. I feel like there's not a Darrell Reed receiving corner, like C.J. Mosley next year. There's no Joe Thomas here. So the guys, a lot of really good-looking players, a lot of solid players. On my mock here, I've got Desmond Trufant third, Ezekiel Anza fourth, Sheldon Richardson fifth. But you quickly get into guys like, Eric Reed, Star Lotulelei, Damon Harrison. Guys who aren't bad players, but I think usually.
Well, the tape and time will tell what happens with those guys. Some of those guys will turn into top flight defensive players that you wish you would have known that guy was going to be a 8-year All-Pro for the next in the next decade. But we just don't know that yet. So you're right. There's no obvious answer at defensive player, or at least no superstar studs. But there could be some guys that emerge. I don't think it's an awful draft, but it's not. Like you said, there's not a lot of sexy, exciting young players.
Yeah, exactly. Just comparing it to past spring drafts, comparing it to. Did I lose you here? No, yeah, you are.
No, I'm here.
But compared to spring drafts from recent years, I felt like the spring drafts were stronger in most recent years. And part of it, there's no quarterback at all here. I feel like in past years, more players had done enough by year 2 that they were more excited. They were more exciting. There's a lot of players here I really like, but also I felt this way in the fall. I'm not sure how much, and I feel this way in a lot of drafts. Maybe it's just me. I don't know how much difference there is in most drafts between going number 7 overall and like number 18 overall. Right. I feel like a lot of times there you're getting a guy who's a young player 5, who looks real solid. In this mock, like for example, in the fall mock, I had Sheldon Richardson going like 17 or 18 in the SOMIFA. That is where he went, and now I think he would go a lot higher. I think he's proven a lot more now.
Right.
Basically, is
whereas guys like Kenny Vaccaro, who's a 4 is going to probably be a 0. Who I picked up in SOMIFA, or Cordero Patterson, who went top 12 in some drafts.
That's right.
And then basically just kind of disappeared this season outside of his return value. You're right. There's not a lot of guys who put 2 excellent seasons together.
There's a lot. There's always guys moving up. Le'Veon Bell's a great example. There's always guys moving down. Cordero Patterson's a great example. And I think there's a lot of solid players in this draft. Now, I also did this mock before Derby's preview. So there are some players
That will
that
get
would
shuffled
probably be
around a
higher.
little bit.
Larry Warford would probably be higher. I got him number 16 at this. The Honey Badger
Hey,
might be a little
he went
lower.
number one. Larry Warford, didn't he go number one in Tomifa?
He went number one overall. So me for yeah, and wasn't. And you see, that's the kind of draft pool it was last year
Right.
in the fall. I mean,
There
because
wasn't
you
there
know the
was no
number one.
Russell Wilson at the top of the draft. There was no
No,
Andrew Luck at the top of the draft. There was no
no.
RG3 at the top of the draft. It was just a bunch of
Like a bunch of
chance.
solid defensive players and stuff like that, good blockers. I mean, Larry Warford might not even be the best guard. Kyle Long might be, but you can't argue with someone who took Larry Warford first last year because his numbers were off the charts. He looked great. He looked
Hey,
to be
that
the
guy,
All-Pro.
if he has a 5.7, 10 of the next 12 years or 10 of the next 15 years, that's excellent value. So
Yeah, but
I can't
normally,
argue with that.
but you can't argue with it. But that's the kind of draft pool it was, where you're taking a guard first overall. I mean, nobody. Look, I
But
think it was
that's
Renee. I think it was Renee who did that. I have no problem with the pick,
I
but
think it's actually brilliant because it is this type of draft class. If you would have reached for Geno Smith, you'd be like wasting the pick.
yeah, I'm just saying. I don't think Renee was sitting there number one overall. Like, all right, I get a guard. I got,
Yeah,
even if
yeah,
the
you're
guy
right.
even if the guy turns into Larry Allen,
Yeah,
it's like, at least if it was Joe Thomas, you feel like you're getting a tackle. And I don't have a problem
I
with the
think
pick, but that's the kind of draft it was. All the
right. And
guys,
I'd have to look back at some of the past SSFA drafts, but this draft more than any other seems like it has a lot of guys who have one good year and one bad year. So you either had a zero and you've improved, like a Jamie Collins. He's moved up to the first round, or a guy like
Andrew Hopkins
yeah,
had a sensational second year, and now he'll probably be someone's first round pick. Although he's a receiver, so you never know, he could slip. But yeah,
right, or somebody like uh, Xavier Rhodes, zero.
yeah,
Now he's looking like he's going to get a 5. Um, so those are you don't have guys that have like two, where you had a Vontaze Burfict where he had a 5 and then the next year he was a 6. So coming
sure,
into the spring draft, you knew you were getting a 5 and a 6.
sure.
There's nobody like that anymore.
Richard
I mean,
Sherman,
Sheldon Richardson might be the closest thing. Yeah,
yeah.
or Richard Sherman, where you had a 4 with a 6. You don't have that type of combination here
Yeah,
coming into
yeah,
this draft.
you get a couple of guys like that. Maybe Eric Reed, maybe Kyle Long, 4.7, maybe 6.7, Ezekiel Anza. But these are the guys who are going to go right near the top.
Right, but
And
it used to be like the whole
there's
round was like that. You could get
exactly.
boom 20 people that you had 2 solid seasons back to back.
And again, no quarterbacks, not a lot of wide receivers in terms of like top flight guys. Not
Yeah.
who's the best pass rusher now long term? We might all sit here and say we love Ezekiel Anza.
Oh
Sheldon
yeah,
Richardson developed
no
pass
doubt.
rush. But usually you have it Alden Smith or somebody who's, oh my God, this guy's, going to get me 15 sacks a year. He's going to be a 12 asterisk, whatever. And, who's the big pass rusher in this pool? I
There
so
isn't there isn't one.
who-
There
yeah,
isn't one.
I can
Not
go
on
position.
the
I can go
line.
position. I can go position by position, and I can say to you, who's a good quarterback here? Nobody. Who's a surefire number one receiver? I'm not sure. Who's a legitimately great tight end? I'm not sure. Who's a legitimately great offensive tackle? I'm not sure. Who's a great pass rusher? Defensive end or outside linebacker? I don't know. Who's that stud middle linebacker 6? I don't know. Who's that stud shutdown corner? Maybe nobody. So there's a lot of real solid players, but a lot of real good players, and some of those guys will emerge. Maybe Ezekiel Ansa will become that great pass rusher. I don't know who the great offensive tackle is going to be. I don't see any quarterback. Is DeAndre Hopkins going to have? He's going to become Andre Johnson? Is he going to become a young Larry Fitzgerald? I don't know if he is. I have on one of my teams.
This might be a good year. I mean, that's why it makes it even more important. Like you were doing, if you're contending, go ahead and get those 5s now because there's not any surefire prospect. But it might also be one of those drafts where it's really deep, where you can get a really good player in the 6th round or 7th round because nobody really knows who that good player is, and he just slips. You have like in the fall, a guy like Ricky Wagner, who looks like he's going to be a solid offensive tackle.
He was like a
Went
4th or
in the
5th round pick.
7th. Oh, he went in the 7th and 8th round sometimes. In
Okay,
some of
well,
my leagues, he went
so
way down. I think in the Autumn Wind, the 30-team league, he went in the 6th round or 5th round. But in the 2014 leagues, he was going in the 6th, 7th rounds. So
Somifi, he was a fourth or fifth rounder, but we have great GMs in Somifi, of course. So,
yeah, there you go.
but no. So I haven't
It's
looked.
grown. It's grown on you. The Somifa's grown on you. I can tell.
Well, it's faster, and you already. It doesn't work. It doesn't work to have two guys saying two different things. But now what the hell was I going to say?
So anyway, you're right. There's not like
Okay.
a bunch of studs.
I haven't, but a lot of really solid players. I mean, I like a lot of these guys. I like all these guys, but maybe Travis Frederick is like the superstar, give me superstar center or something.
Fred Beer, yeah.
But I haven't looked at the numbers deep enough to say yet. But there's a lot of players I like who are really solid, and I do think you have a fairly solid first round. I think you have a pretty solid first 15 to 20. But I from what I've seen so far, and I'm not ready to say this wholeheartedly, but I don't think that the depth is quite there as much as it is in other drafts. I've got a pick in SSFA that's number 33 overall, and I'm not convinced I'm going to get the type of player there that I'd like to get at number 33 that I would normally get at 33.
You will.
One needs some guys to draft poorly, so we'll see what happens.
But the thing is, when you have this kind of pool, it's just people have different opinions, and there's no clear-cut person. Sure. I think who you want will one of the guys that you want will likely be there. I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah. So getting back to Andre Ellington, I think that's a pick more for the card, and I think guys like Andre Ellington. I think if you followed Arizona this year, this guy was playing hurt the whole year. And yes, he's not going to have a good card next year, but he looks like the type of back who will get good strat cards. You know what I'm saying? That high average guy, and also with their quarterback situation, hey, give me that running back who only needs to get a 4.3 average because his team doesn't have a good passing game.
Yeah, but he's got a 3.3 average.
He's going to ride the bench.
He doesn't even have the 3.9 average.
I know, but I think that guy has a decent team for the year. I think he needs a running back, but also you got to draft your running back sooner or later. So what's he going to do? Take Kyle Long instead? Maybe, I don't know. I got to look at the guy's team. I really think it depends on the league, but I think Andre Ellington will definitely go in the top 15 of almost every spring draft for the card in any league that's got 24 or more teams. I definitely think so.
I would agree.
I think because the card is good. It's got the good guess wrong columns that people like. Look, he's in the game. You got to get some run. You can't let Andre Ellington run wild on you.
Yeah, just don't be surprised if he does go like 18th or 19th or 20th or 21st.
I'm not surprised by a lot, but I would be surprised. I don't think he's going to get out of the top 12, and we're going to find out in 8 days. But I don't think he's going to get out of the top 12 in SSFA because you also got to realize a lot of teams need running backs. A lot of teams need running backs. So even though the guy had a bad sophomore year with injury, if you have any kind of competitive team for the year, you can say, I can use this card right now. I know he had the bad year next year, but I would think he's a pretty good candidate to be pretty good after that. Now, maybe
are there any of these other running backs that you think can be good long term? Giovanni Bernard, Denard Robinson.
Well, okay, I'll tell you this. I loved Monty Ball coming into last year's draft. I'm very concerned now because he had injuries and because of the emergence of C.J. Anderson. But look, there's none of these other guys that I would take in the first round. But there's guys that maybe third, fourth, fifth round, depending on the size of your league. So
I think Gio Bernard will go late 1, early 2. I think Denard Robinson will go middle of the second.
Middle of the second. Well, we should do.
I think Monty Ball will start.
We should go the number number 40 or number 50 instead of middle of the second, because depending on your league, right? You're in a 30-team league or a 24-team league, right?
Okay.
If you do quick. So where do you see Denard Robinson going? Roughly.
I see him going about 45 to 55, somewhere in there.
I really like when I saw him this year. I wanted to pick him up last year, but it didn't work out.
Maybe a little earlier. I could see him going 40, somewhere around there.
Kyrie Robinson, the guy I like.
Kyrie Robinson has that Bill Parcells saw him as the next Dave Meggett type of mojo a couple years ago. So, and he looked good at times as well. Something like that. No, he said.
Bigger.
Oh no. He said he was the next Curtis Martin. Before the Seahawks playoff game, Saints against Seahawks last year, he said, Sean Payton said that Bill Parcells called him and told him he was the next Curtis Martin. So
I did not know that, but
watch it on Game Rewind. The intro
I believe
to
you.
the Seahawks Saints game from last year. You'll hear it.
I believe you, and I'm not going to go watch the game rewind. I'll just believe you. I think that's a better way to
It
go.
was an excellent game. You'll miss out on a Seahawks victory.
Yeah, I think I've seen enough of those for a while.
but
but look, I mean, like there are these guys who, second level backs. You never know when one of these guys is going to emerge. But I like Kyrie Robinson as a Pierre Thomas type of guy, a committee type of guy. He got hurt this year, but he still put up decent numbers. I don't think he's gonna have a real good card next year. And if you play with that fatigue rule, he kills you this year because he doesn't meet the threshold. But
he's a Niall Davis?
Niall Davis was a guy that I liked a lot coming out of college. I like what I saw the clips. I watch his clips, but he fumbles a lot, and his rushing average disappeared. He looked good for a while there with Kansas City, but he's a guy that I would say maybe in like the 100 to 130 range, 100 to 140 range.
I know that there's a couple coaches that like him a lot.
I'm just thinking about where I think he should go.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. Injury concerns with him too.
Kyrie Robinson, I would say maybe around 48 to 50, somewhere in there, maybe.
Right. Here's a perfect example of why spring leagues are entirely different than fall leagues.
Sure.
Zach Stacy, where will he go? He was a top of the second round type guy.
Yeah, well, you got screwed if you had him. You got screwed last year because he was the guy that I wrote about in that article about running backs, where I just said, this guy. He had all kinds of yards, I think he started the last 12 games of the year and had 900 yards in 12 games and ran for 100 yards 4 times, was getting the ball 20 times a game late in the season. And then, they draft Trey Mason and the guy hardly plays. So, I mean, for me, Zach Stacy, not really a guy that I'm interested in, and, take him at your own risk, I guess. I mean, his card's not that great in the first place. It's an okay card, but...
No, I mean, I don't think that people will. I'm just saying what a difference a few months make, and I think rightfully so. But it just shows you how dangerous running backs are. Investing a high pick in a running back, not smart. I mean, if you can avoid it.
Denard Robinson is weird because he did real well for a couple of games and then got hurt. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of coming back from injury and if they view him as the guy. So he's a guy I think that'll go. That's a little risky, but someone will take him.
All right, well, let's move on to the wide receivers.
I know you don't want to have a 7-hour show.
Well, we can't. You got me for another 20 minutes, and then I'm crashing. So
yeah, so we'll be done with the skill players, maybe. Okay.
Yeah, or we can do the offense tonight, and I think we'll be good to pick up the defense tomorrow night or whenever.
Or another time, sure. I think it's a decent wide receiver class. It's hard to say that when you look at next year's wide receiver class. I think there's a lot of guys who can play in the NFL. You have DeAndre Hopkins number 1, Keenan Allen number 2, and then Cordero Patterson number 3. Do you still think he's you still think you want him as the third wide receiver off the board ahead of Terrence Williams and Kenny Stills? Well, you got to realize this list that we're working off of. This is stuff where I threw all the good guys to the top and didn't quite sort them all out yet. So
gotcha.
You can't. I don't want you to read down it and say that I've got Cordero Patterson number 3.
Well, he was still a number 1 pick, and he still has talent. He just something happened this year with him.
He's backing up an undrafted guy now, though.
Charles Johnson, yeah.
And that's with Norv Turner, who was there. So I would say no. I would say I would drop Cordero Patterson further. I would say DeAndre Hopkins 1, Keenan Allen 2. I like Terrence Williams a lot. I think he's a real good player. They didn't throw him the ball that much. I don't know how good his card's going to be, but that's because they just had so much success throwing to Dez and Witten and Murray out of the backfield and were able to run with Murray. Kenny Stills is interesting to me. I'll tell you what, I would take those 4 guys ahead of Cordero. I would probably put Cordero 5th then. I think I would take Cordero. I think I would take Cordero over the likes of Robert Woods and Andre Holmes and the enigmatic Justin Hunter. And I'm not a Tavon Austin fan at all. You can have him as far as I'm concerned.
Marcus Wheaton.
He's not bad. He was the guy that everyone liked going into last year's draft, and then Martavius Bryant shows up. So Marcus Wheaton, I
Yeah.
think, has been passed by Martavius Bryant in terms of who's going to be that number 2 Steelers receiver. Who's the next Emmanuel Sanders? Who's the next number 2 guy that eventually becomes the number 1 guy? You hope. I think people
Right.
like Martavius Bryant in that slot right now. Keenan Allen, I don't know what to do with this guy. I wasn't a huge fan of his with the naked eye last year. He seemed to barely get open, but he got open enough for Philip Rivers to always find him. I know he's banged up this year, so I'm really curious where he's going to go. I don't know what to make him. I mean, there's so many guys next year that I like better than Keenan Allen. But anyway, you've got a number 2. So I think it's a draft. I got a lot of guys who can play. DeAndre Hopkins is the only guy that I feel like, I think he's definitely the number 1 guy. Then the rest of your guys are, number 2, number 3 type guys. Maybe Patterson steps up. Maybe Keenan Allen bounces back. But a lot of guys like Terrence Williams, Kenny Stills, Robert Woods, Andre Holmes, Justin Hunter, Marcus Wheaton, number 2 type guys. You agree with that?
I do, and I would prefer a guy. I mean, for the card, not the player, but for the card, I always prefer a guy like Kenny Stills with a high yards per catch average over an accumulator like Keenan Allen, who will put up 100 catches, but has an 11.1 yards per catch average. I know Keenan Allen's been more explosive in the past, and maybe he'll get back to that after he's healthy. But give me the Kenny Stills, Justin Hunters of the world. Of course, you always preferred DeAndre Hopkins, but give me the guys who put up a high yards per catch average, and maybe don't have max hits, but when they do hit, it's going to move the ball down the field.
Now does that go for the rookie card? You like Kenny Stills' rookie card better than Keenan Allen's rookie card?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm talking about the card that will come after this one.
Your 2
But
cards,
I think Kenny Stills' rookie card is worthy of starting. I would start that card.
Sure, I think so.
I would. He would be a great number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah, well, Keenan Allen's year 2 card, like a Julian Edelman type of card. Yeah, those cards don't do anything for me. Kendall Wright is a guy who was drafted in the 2nd round last year, and he's got that, had a bunch of catches, and is a possession card. It just doesn't excite me that much. I agree with you. I don't like those guys, but ideally you want a guy who can do both. At least give me 12, 18 deep, even if you're not lighting it up with long gains. So, but all right, let's go to the tight end. The tight end position, pretty good class of tight ends. It looked like still some interesting guys here. I'm not hard on who the number 1 tight end is here. I know that you like Julius Thomas a lot, and you drafted in the 1st round in the fall. For me, the top 2 tight ends here are Zach Ertz and Jordan Reed, and maybe you think that's crazy. What do you think?
I still think there's Julius Thomas has an argument to be in that group. I don't think he's that far behind, even if he's not in that group. I would probably take Zach Ertz first because of the system, then Julius Thomas, then Jordan Reed. But I can definitely see the argument for going with Reed in front of Thomas. But if you look at the first half of the season, Julius Thomas was on fire. Then he got hurt. I think he had like 12 touchdowns in the first half.
Yeah, 12 in 9 games.
And then he just basically did nothing. But
with a bad ankle, yeah.
Yeah. But when he gets healthy, and there was a blurb on Pro Football Talk, him getting upset about people questioning his toughness.
Soft, yeah.
Yeah, so who knows what's there with that? But
well, I think it's funny. I heard Jim Brown say one time that anytime you start comparing great players, all you're doing is doing a disservice to the guy who comes out, is second. Like if you want to compare. If you want to compare Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith, and a lot of guys will tell you, which I would, that Barry Sanders is better, and it sounds like you're knocking Emmitt Smith. Meanwhile, Emmitt Smith was a great running back. There's no doubt about it. So now I'm not saying any of these 3 guys are great players, but Zach Ertz, Jordan Reed, Julius Thomas, all very good tight ends, all good draft picks, all people I think you'd be happy to have. I don't like Julius Thomas as much because just with the naked eye, I just feel like I know he's got a good athleticism. I think his hands aren't the best. I think his routes aren't the best. I feel like he's more a product of that offense and all the weapons they have and the super genius at quarterback than he is of his own abilities. Now, and the blocking 0 doesn't thrill me either.
Yeah, I don't have numbers in front of me, but I would be very surprised if he wasn't among the top in this group with yards after the catch, because he's just a physical brute. He can break tackles and run down the field. You can improve your route run. You can improve your route running. You can improve your hands, but you're not going to grow 6 inches and put on, 25 pounds of muscle. I like the way he looks. I think he's a quality player.
Well, you can do that, but then you get suspended.
True. Good point. Good point.
Okay, 40,
Oh,
40,
hold on.
Go ahead.
I gotta work on my timing. Timing.
They say in comedy timing is everything, but 43 catches, 11.4 with the longest of 35. I don't see a great card coming out of that. A lot of touchdowns doesn't give you a great strat card if you don't have a good average and a nice longest with a dot or something,
But he does have a dot. Julius Thomas does have the dot.
For next year? All right,
yeah.
Well, the longest of 35.
The two tight ends that have a dot long in this class are Ertz and Thomas.
For next year. For next year.
And Luke Wilson with an 80-yard touchdown.
Okay.
So, or 80-yard. I think that's
still at 11.4. See, and the longest of 35, even with the dot, he's not going to be rife with big gains. You know what I'm saying?
But look at the tight end class. There's no tight ends. I'm not just talking about in this draft class. I'm talking about in the NFL. It is not a strong time for tight ends. You're still going to have them in your top 5, top 10.
So let me ask this: where's Julius Thomas going in spring draft?
Second round at the latest. What do you think?
I don't have him in my top
50. He's going to be in the top 50.
Definitely top 50. Absolutely. I think he'll go. I think he'll go around number 30. I would say 27 to 30. I think is what.
And that's pretty much where he went in a lot of fall leagues. Aside from me, where I really needed a tight end, and took him, I think, 18th or something like that. I think he went around there late first, early second, 25 to 35 in most teams.
I wouldn't be astonished if he does become like an Antonio Gates type. I wouldn't be astonished if he was the first tight end taken off the board. I do think that almost everyone out there will have him ahead of Jordan Reed. I kind of like Jordan Reed. I was impressed with not only what he did as a rookie, but also this year. Was injured a lot, but still put up good numbers. And when he came back, they threw to him a lot.
But he has to have a lower yards per catch than Thomas. What is he? 10 point something? 11 point something?
For next year.
Yeah. Let me calculate that real quick.
Hold on.
I'm just saying his card's not going to be any better.
No, I don't think it will be better. Hold on. But at least they're not calling him soft. Jordan Reed, terrible. 50 catches with a 9.3 average.
There you go. So that's why I have Thomas ahead of him.
Yeah, but if Peyton Manning's arm has disappeared, let's see what Julius Thomas' averages next year. But
I think Peyton Manning's arm's pretty much disappeared. If you look at his second half of the season, it hasn't been good.
Just hold on a second. I need to scout Mike Glennon some more because I got Peyton Manning and his arm is gone.
Yeah, move him up. Hey,
Jordan, okay. 2 years younger. So Julius Thomas will be 27 this year. But anyway,
yes. What about Ladarius Green? I know you had him with the fullbacks, but where would you stick him in this class? I moved him over to your tight end tab. I put him right underneath Michael Rivera.
But he's my number one. He's my number one blocking back. Anyway.
I'm just saying.
I want him a blocking back and one of a tight end.
I know.
4-4. Come on, but he's interesting. Football Outsiders loved him. He was a guy, everyone's favorite breakthrough candidate coming into this year. It was going to be 2 tight ends in San Diego, and him and Gates were going to run wild, and then it didn't happen. So he's got a card that's pretty scary. He's got one of those unique blocking back cards. So he's great to have if you're going for the year. I still like him long term. I'm concerned that he didn't do more this year for the Chargers when they couldn't even run the ball, and he was presumably healthy. But I would say I'd like him maybe in the early 60s, maybe. And I still think he has a chance to develop and become a star. I think he's going to go one way or the other. You're either going to get a steal or you're going to get a bust. I don't think he's going to be a guy that gets 40 catches and an 11.3 average for 4 or 5 years. He's either going to really take off when Gates retires, or just when they change the offense a little bit, or he's going to fade away into obscurity.
I agree with that. I think there's more chance that he'll put up some good cards, he'll be a good 4 or 5 year tight end after Gates retires. Um,
and other guys of interest. There's a lot of interesting tight ends you can get here a little later. Tyler Eifert, Michael Rivera, Tim Wright. You know who I love? I love Gavin Escobar. I really think that if this guy looks so smooth and so good, if Jason Witten wasn't still hogging up all the action over there by playing at such a high level at his age, I think Escobar would already be really coming through. But Witten has shown no signs of slowing down, and they don't even have enough balls to throw to Terrence Williams. So if you take a guy like Gavin Escobar, who was born in 1991, you might be waiting a couple of years, but you might be rewarded eventually. But he's not gonna be a very high pick, but a good sneaky pick that I really like him. I really like him long term.
I like him too. I like Tim Wright as well, just because of the system he's in. He seemed to get better as the year went on. I think he'll be another guy that isn't going to be like a great tight end, but he'll have some serviceable cards, and you'll be happy to line him up in a 2 tight end set as your second tight end. So.
And maybe even as your first tight end, now New England hasn't had any tight end zeros, I don't think. So I mean, if he can get tight end 4s. But what's interesting, if you look at his film, he does not look like a tight end. He looks like Shannon Sharp. Like he looks like a wide receiver. So I wonder if Strat's ever going to give him blocking 4s. But I mean, and look, he came to New England, and that trade happened early in the season or late in the off season, so late in camp. So next year might be his first year to try and do something. But I kind of like him. He's intriguing. But again, these are guys you don't draft too early. But if you can get them, let's say somewhere in that number 100 overall and lower, you might end up with a guy you like. But I like Escobar better as a potential every down tight end. But Tim Wright's another decent guy. I agree.
And you should move Luke Wilson up. You have him at second to bottom. I think you might have overlooked him.
I haven't overlooked him. The most overrated. Everyone was drafting him last year, like in the third round, second, third, fourth round. I'm like, Luke Wilson. Why? What's so good about Luke Wilson? I haven't seen anything in the clips that makes me think he's good.
Speed.
I don't see it.
He's got like a 4.5 40. If you look at that 80-yard catch that he made, he can do some things. I think that I'm not saying he's going to be fantastic, but right around where you have Vance McDonald and Levine Toilolo and that group, he needs to be above them. He needs to be like 10th.
We got to realize that, again, like I said, I moved all the guys to the top of these lists. These aren't hard and fast lists. But Luke Wilson would, so pretty much after Gavin Escobar, you can ignore the rest of my list because those aren't guys. But I would probably put Luke Wilson up there. Vance McDonald could not catch a football.
Let him carry Gavin Escobar's lunch. At least put him behind him, somewhere around there.
I would put him in behind Gavin Escobar. I'm not a Luke Wilson fan. I like Owen Wilson. I think he's pretty funny in the movie.
He is. He is.
Well, actually, I do like Luke Wilson as the actor. Old school. That's Luke Wilson, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's Owen Wilson's brother. He's in a couple movies. Not the old school, very fine movie. It's sort of a poor man's Animal House for the modern audience, but a pretty funny movie. But as a football player, I'm not a Luke Wilson fan, but I'm in the minority, so maybe everyone is right and I'm wrong. We'll find out. So let's move to the offensive line. I know we're going to wrap it up soon here as we go through the offense. Let's start at Zeb Strong's favorite position on the field, which is center. I think that makes sense. This is a kind of a weak class, it looks like. A couple interesting guys. Travis Frederick can do no wrong. I don't think he's Eric Mangold, but I think he's a very strong, solid center. I think he's going to be a 6'4", 6'5" every year. At the very worst, he'll be 5'5s". He'll be playing for 10, 12 years. And I wrote a whole big thing about this in the forum. There was some poor guy who was just joined the league and asked an innocent question about a draft, and I was in the mood to write, and I gave him pages and pages of my philosophy on drafting young players because I love talking about young players. I love the football drafts, and I had nothing better to do with my time. So he's like, "Oh my God, this is awesome! I've been on the forum for 10 minutes. I'm getting all this help." But I talked about the concept of if you can get a guy that is just a real solid player. Looks real solid. You don't have any doubts about him. He's at a position where he's likely to play for as a 10-year starter. Then don't hesitate to draft that guy, even if he plays a boring position like center or strong safety or right guard. Because when you draft enough of those guys, next thing you know, you wake up and you got a strong overall roster, and you can take more chances drafting those quarterbacks and those running backs, or take a wide receiver really highly that people don't like to do, or you have assets then to make trades. That's how I'm trying to build that. I can't even say it. Somifa Jets team I've got. I'm trying to be patient with luck and these guys. And I think it'll work in a lot of leagues. And I got Travis Frederick in Autumn Wind. The Autumn Wind is a Raider, but he is a Berlin Thunder in that league.
I
And
like what you're saying, and I agree with it. But the only thing that you have to worry about with a center position is you can only play one guy at a time, and that means that people won't give you good value in a trade, or as good a value in a trade as they would if it was even a guard or a tackle. Like look at it, the spring league. I have Max Unger. I'm not going to take Travis Frederick in the first round or the second round, but if I did, and I try to trade Unger, I'm not going to get what you would get for a 6'5" guard or a 6'5" tackle. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, but if you have Unger, you don't draft Travis Frederick. I mean, yeah, I mean, he's not. He's not. I'm
just saying the center position, because there's only one on the field at once. You're not getting the value that you would at other spots.
Sure. I mean, I've got him going. But no, it's got to be the right team, though. Absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Look, for everything I said about Fred Beard, I'm not saying draft him top 5. I've got him number 19 in the SSFA mock draft this week.
That'll happen.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're around pick number 20, if you're in that 15 to 25 range, and you need a center, and Travis Frederick is there, you draft him, and you don't have to draft a center for the next 10 years.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can only play one, but but I'll tell you this also. If you're drafting in this draft pool, if you're drafting 8th or 9th or 10th, and you need a center, I don't have any problem with you drafting Travis Frederick, because who else are you drafting? Star Lotulelei? Kyle Long?
Yeah, you're right. Brian Schwenke, I thought was going to be a decent fallback, but
I agreed with you.
Everybody has him as a 0-3, and what does Mark have him at? Let me see. Mark has him as a 4-2. Neither one of those is that exciting.
No, but you got to realize here's a guy, I think he was the number 2 center ranked by Mel Kiper Jr. coming into that NFL draft. Tennessee's not a good team. A lot of good things are written about him. His ratings aren't that great so far. But look, Brian Schwenke, if you need a center, I'm happy to take Brian Schwenke, again, maybe, I'll tell you what, number 90. Number 90 to 125. If you need a center, you take – look, and you're drafting long-term. This is all long-term stuff. Yeah. Obviously, you're not drafting a center for 0 because you need one for the year. I don't have a problem with the guy. Is he going to be great? I don't know. I couldn't tell you, how well Brian Schwenke hikes a football. But
when they get a quarterback in there that doesn't get sacked all the time, then he could easily be a 4-5 type of guy, which is very useful at the center spot.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question. When you quote blocking ratings, are you doing pass first or run first?
Always run first. Remember, I came in with V4, so I never, I don't get with these old guys putting the other rating, put them in the other order.
No. It's the newer guys who put the pass rating first, I think. Well, maybe not. Well, here's the deal.
But how can you do that when you do the defensive? The defense is always run, pass. The offense is always run, pass. I don't understand.
No, I agree with you.
Whoever says you should have the pass rating first?
I do run first. Now, I'm not sure where it comes from. We need to talk to some guys. I'll tell you what, if you are out there listening or watching and you do pass first, if you tell me that a center is a 7-5 instead of a 5-7, you send Dennis and I a PM on the forum and tell me why you do it that way and not the other way and where it comes from. I'll tell you what I think may have happened. This is a theory I'm just coming up with now, live, on the air.
Okay. Tell me.
Okay.
Hit me.
All right. For you old school Strat football players, I'm talking about big cards, blocking rating on the running backs card, 6, 7, 8 short gain, pre-1982 Strat football players, okay? Pre the super advanced for the individual pass rush, okay? If you know what it means for a team to be a 5 pass block rating, okay? Back then, before 1982, there was no individual pass block rating. All you had was a run rating. And it was from 1 to 1, and you were either 0, 1, or 2, or 3, because the blocking ratings were on the running backs card. They weren't on the defense's card, okay? Then in 1982, the strike year, Strat changed, and they went from team pass blocking and team pass rush to individual pass blocking and individual pass rush, okay? So now, if you look at your Strat cards, your Strat football cards, when you look at the offensive line, the pass blocking is on the left and the run blocking is on the right. So I think that there is a generation of Strat football players who only know that post-1981 environment, and they look at that run block, that offensive line card pass blocking left, run blocking right. We read left to right, so a guy's a 7-4, not a 4-7. But for the guys who go back before that, there was only run blocking. The pass blocking was new. We added the pass blocking to the run blocking, so we say 4-7. You understand what I'm saying?
I do, but I'm looking
Now,
at
I don't know. Now
the
you guys,
game. I'm looking at the game. The game has the run first, pass second. I'm looking at the ratings disc. The ratings disc has the run first, the pass second.
Yeah, but
left to right, reading left to right.
Yeah, but now you're talking about someone like yourself who has only played the computer game. You never played with the cards in the old days.
I did, but not that much. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, okay, so this is what happened. If you played before 1982, you're going to do run first. If you played with cards from 1982 until the computer game was born in the year 2001, you're going to do pass block first. If you only played computer game, you're going to do run block first because the game listed first. I think that's what's going on.
All right, I'll go with that. Sounds like a solid theory to me.
All right, the only other center here that looks like he's worth his salt might be Khalid Holmes, but this guy, he was injured all the time in college. He's been injured all the time in the NFL. You know, you take him late and you hope he gets healthy and plays. I don't see anybody else here really doing much. Do you?
No, I think that's it.
I have a secret crush on Julian Van der Velde. I think he might. You draft him in like the 9th round, and maybe like 4 years from now he gets a good rating. We'll find out.
You just like him because of the name. That's all I can say.
It's a good name. Tough not to like the name.
I've read some good things about Tim Lelito, but I don't think he ever established himself as a starter in New Orleans. But yeah, if anybody who's a starter in New Orleans is going to get a decent pass block rating, so that's another guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, the rest of these guys, yeah. I mean, you know, I'm not going to go over every single guy in this set, but sure, there's guys out there, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's move along to guard. Okay. Let's see. Oh my God,
look at the inside out.
Yeah, well, look at the. You don't have my comments. I have a huge write-up on Larry Warford. It's like it's causing me to only see like 3 guards when I look at my screen because I write up on Larry Warford. So
nice.
There's some pretty good guards in the top of the draft here. We got Kyle Long as my number 1 guard in this set. I would take him. I would take him over Larry Warford. I really would. I just
He's
think
looks great. Yeah.
I think
more athletic.
Yeah, I can't tell you I've ever seen Kyle Long block anybody, but I can tell you that he's a first-round pick. He's got the pedigree name, 7 as a rookie, Pro Bowl as a second-year guy, projects as a 6'7" this year. I know he's a right guard, but so is Warford. I mean, why wouldn't you take Kyle Long as the number 1 guard in this set?
Well, Warford's 3 years younger, so that's one reason.
Okay.
And
2.5.
Yeah, 2.5. And Warford only started 13 games this year. And Long only started. He started 15 out of 16. But I could see Warford having some injury problems. But I think that Long's your best bet. Warford's close, but Long's your best bet. And the other reason you take Warford is because you're competing and you want that 5 over the 4.
I'll tell you what. If you're competing and your margin of victory is that your right guard's a 5 instead of a 4, you're probably not a championship team.
Some people don't want to take chances.
I know.
So
I'm
just trying to give you a reason why people would pick Warford over youth and the rating, the instant gratification of getting that 5-7 right now.
I'm going to take Kyle Long. I'm going to take Kyle Long over Warford. I think I'm going to take him by a significant margin. But I like Warford a lot. The only problem is I was pretty stoked by Derby's. I don't have Warford in any of my teams. This is how bizarre I am. I'm excited that Larry Warford gets a 5-7 from Derby. He's not on any of my teams, but I feel like, all right, cool, because Larry Warford's supposed to be good. But, yeah, I like Warford a lot. I think he'll be real good. But I got Kyle Long as a top 10 in the spring drafts coming up. Now, again, most of the leagues I play in, they don't do the defense where the points get added up. So I know the defensive guys go higher. The offensive linemen slip in a league like Spring Fever, which is a spring equivalent of autumn wind. So I know a lot of guys in that league are listening to me saying, what are you, crazy? I don't want a guard. I want a defensive end. But I'm just saying in a league where you use, let's say, average defense like we do in SOMIFA and SSFA, then the offensive linemen can hold their weight compared to the defensive guys. I got Kyle Long going top 10. Now, I originally had Larry Warford a lot lower because he was projecting maybe as a 4-7, number 16. But I think with Derby projecting 5-7, I think they might both go top 10. I know guards aren't sexy, but I could see them both going top 10. What do you think?
It's possible. I think, again, it's because in SSFA you don't care about the we use the same generic defensive card, so we're not adding up the points. So Yeah, I think that there's a good chance that they go in the top half of the first round. I don't know if I'd go top 10,
Sure.
because even in Ed's leagues, people like those skill positions. People like this defensive positions with the numbers, even though we don't use them at double count them. They still want them to be. They want that outside linebacker to be covered by a 5. So I could
Yeah,
see a guy like
everyone's
C.O. Moore going ahead of um, Kyle Long.
you got
Depending on
you
the team.
guy. Yeah, guys are a lot more guys are terrified of having fours running around the defense. Whereas offensive line, they'll play 0-5 and whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and I'm a bit of an offensive line whore, even though if I can say that, should I not use language like that? I think I'm okay, right?
No, well, do it, do it.
Okay. But
Let's let's
I'm a bit of an
let's go.
offensive line whore, even though my spreadsheet work trademark has shown that maybe I should be focusing more on defensive guys. I'll tell you what, my spreadsheet work has shown you better cover some people. You know what? You better, your guys, your short pass guys, and your outside linebackers. You want as many of them to be 6s and 5s. Oh wow, what a revelation! But that's where you really want to invest your resources, is covering some people, because the numbers when you have even a number 2 receiver against like a guy who's a 4, that is a pretty sweet opportunity for the offense. And you're going to come
Yes.
back at me and say, well, yeah, well, I'm going to double team that guy all day. Well, fine, go ahead. I'll run the ball and I got other guys to throw it to. We're talking about it with good teams. So, but yeah, and also the flat pass being king. My spreadsheet work showed that flat pass right is usually a pretty good play. A lot of times, flat pass right is completing over 65% for a 5-yard average gain. The average gain, not average completion. So I mean, that's a pretty good number right there, except against the linebacker 6. Against the linebacker 6, that average gain with like a decent quarterback goes from like 5 to like 3. So
Nice. We have
so
we have some sound here of Tom using his spreadsheet. So let's hear what it sounds like. Oh my God! Look at that. Can you hear that?
I don't hear anything.
Oh, hold on. How,
I think what we have sound is a Dennis failing to operate the sound effects properly is what we have here. Now I've lost you. Now you know you doing anything. Dennis, you talking? I can't hear you. All right, no, I do not hear you, Dennis. So you probably did some kind of crazy thing to your microphone, and now you can't be heard. No, I'm not hearing you. Dennis, can you hear me? Dennis, do a thumbs up if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay, I cannot hear you. I don't hear you. And okay, Dennis, now he looks like rebooting. Oh, your mic is muted. Unmute your mic. I can't hear you. What am I going to do, folks? Nope, still can't hear you. Dennis was attempting to play a sound effect, and instead he succeeded in completely muting his own ability to speak. And now he can't talk at all. Should I continue without you? Oh, it's done. All right, let me wrap up these couple of guys, and we'll sign off because Dennis has just destroyed his computer's ability to record his own audio. We were doing guards, and we spent about 20 minutes telling you that Kyle Long and Larry Warford are pretty good. I don't know if anyone's going to listen to this. This is going on for like 2 hours. Chance Warmack is number 3 guard on my on my list rather. Number 10 pick in the draft. A lot of people probably have him higher. Maybe not, because Long and Warford look pretty good. Warmack is an interesting guy. If you're like a young rebuilding team, you wouldn't mind taking him probably maybe in that 20 to 35 range. I know he plays on the right side right now. Derby's giving him a good rating. He should be a pretty solid player. Again, those offensive linemen, when they're good, they play for a long time. They can give you 10 to 12 years, and when you can plug a guy in any position for 10, 12 years, it's really nice when you don't have to think about that position for a while. Then I got guys like Ronald Leary, Hugh Thornton on the Colts, Paul Faneka. These are all more second-level guys. I mean, Leary's going to get a good rating next year, but there's so much pedigree on that Cowboy line that somebody's got to get shorted on the ratings over the long haul. And unless the Cowboys are going to win 12 games every year, I could see Ronald Leary settling into a 4-4 or 4-3. And you never know when a guy like that simply gets replaced. Hugh Thornton's on the Colts, so you can hope to get good pass blocking ratings out of him because Andrew Luck does such a nice job. But they were moving a bunch of guys in and out, so I'm not a huge Hugh Thornton guy. I'm not really huge in any of these other guards. Yeah, that's about it for that position that I can see. And then we'll go to the offensive tackles, where I am still by myself because Dennis can't get back on. A very interesting offensive tackle group this year. Actually, some depth, I think. Maybe no one who is that next, perennial 6'7", but a lot of very interesting guys. Now, I don't have them really in the right order here, so I'm trying to do this on the fly. Lane Johnson might be my number one offensive tackle. Obviously, the number 4 pick in the NFL draft last year. Oh, I just heard a ding. Is that Dennis talking to me now? Dennis, can you say something? No, I still can't hear him. Okay. I heard a ding, but now there's still no Dennis. So hopefully you guys are hearing this. Lane Johnson, number 4 pick in the draft, 5'3" as a rookie. I think Derby's projecting him as a 6 this year. He is on the right side. Ideally, you want a left tackle because right tackles tend to not get 6s nor 7s. They particularly don't get 6s. But, Jason Peters getting older. There's always salary considerations. Maybe Lane will eventually move over to the left side from what I read. He looks like a solid long-term pick, even if he's stuck on the right side. Teron Armstead from the Saints is a guy that I loved coming into last year. Wanted to get him, but someone gobbled him up in the second round of the Somifa draft before I could. He's projecting only as a 4.7 by Derby this year because the Saints didn't maybe do as well as people would like. He could be a 5.7. Was a third-round pick in the NFL. We'll see. I'm a little worried the Saints are going to just implode. They already went 6-10. And maybe in 2 years they're going to cut Drew Brees or something, and Peyton will be gone, and it'll be a total rebuild. They'll be like the Buccaneers, and all bets are off. But Armstead's a good player. Eric Fisher I have a lot of concerns about. I know he's on the left side now. I don't think he's ever going to justify his number 1 overall standing. He's another guy, maybe take him in the 20 to 35 range, whereas Lane Johnson maybe taking that 15 to 28 range. DJ Fluker looks pretty solid. He's on the right side. A lot of solid-looking tackles here. Ricky Wagner, a guy who was a 5th-round pick in the NFL, started on the right side for the Ravens. Everyone wrote glowing things about this guy. Derby's got him as a 0.7. I think he will get at least a 4-run block, not to question Derby because he does this much better than I do and has put a lot of work into it. But Ricky Wagner's a nice guy who's only a 0.2 as a rookie. So he's going to slip in all your drafts. Ideally you get him somewhere in that 60 to 90 range would be great. Justin Pugh, 60 to 90 overall, so you got to do the math for how many teams are in your league. Justin Pugh from the Giants was a number 19 pick in the draft, 4.5 as a rookie. Pretty solid guy. I don't see him moving over to the left side anytime soon. That's a problem with a lot of these guys that are right tackles. Really, well, there we go. You there, Dennis?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I was just talking about Justin Pugh. So let me try to wrap up these offensive tackles. Justin Pugh, I think, pretty solid guy. Again, a lot of these guys are right tackles. Ideally, you want to draft left tackles highly. But look, they might be solid tackles. So Justin Pugh maybe in that 20 to 38 range. Adrian Waddle's got a 4.5 as a rookie, but I think was a little banged up this year. Is not projecting too well by Derby guy. Jordan Mills and the Bears, another pretty decent-looking young tackle. Nate Chandler, I think, got a decent rating at a Derby. So David Bakhtiari. There's a lot of pretty decent tackles. Again, no Joe Thomas here, but a lot of tackles that can play some NFL football. So particularly if you're in a really large league, 24, 30 teams, maybe you want to get a guy on the right side who can be a perennial 4-5 type of guy. These guys will fit the bill. If you're in a 30-team league, any of these guys will help you out.
And I think you have to look at where they're playing on the line. Right tackle for a lot of these guys means that their ratings will be a step below.
Yep.
So, you grab them when you can, but don't be surprised if it takes a few years for their ratings to come up.
Yeah. That's the thing when you're drafting offensive line. I should have mentioned that. All I did was say briefly you want an OLT over an ORT, but you always want to get the guy on the left side. You can get the OLT or the OLG. They get the OLTs get 7s more often. They're the only ones who regularly get 6s. I think the left guards get 7s more often because they got to block the high linebacker in a 3-4. But again, if you There's nothing wrong with a perennial 4-5 at right tackle if the guy's going to play for many years. And some of these guys will eventually slide over. Some of these guys, might take a couple of years, like Dennis said, to get good ratings. But, in terms of guys that I would take, let's see, if you need a right tackle on your team, I mean, I'm not going to go in any order here, but just to say, Teron Armstead, Eric Fisher, Lane Johnson, DJ Fluker, Ricky Wagner, Justin Pugh, Jordan Mills. Then you still have guys who are playing, like Adrian Waddle, Nate Chandler. I mean that's like seven. I forgot David Bakhtiari. That's like 7 to 9 guys already. 7 to 10 guys.
If you need a tackle, you can wait and get somebody later on in the middle of the rounds.
Menelik Watson.
There's another guy.
But look, the strategy about waiting all the time, you need to make sure that you are rating your guys, putting guys in an order that you want them, and keeping an eye on it like a hawk, because you got to wait 20, 30 picks before your next selection, and sometimes if there's a run, you get stuck with the bottom of the barrel. So sometimes if so for example, if you're drafting, let's say you're drafting number 60 and you need a right tackle, and I'm going to say that, let's say Eric Fisher, Lane Johnson, DJ Fluker, Teron Armstead, and Justin Pugh are gone. Hey, maybe you can grab Ricky Wagner then. That's a good pick, If he's gone, do you go for Adrian Waddle, Jordan Mills? Maybe not. But David Bakhtiari, he's on the left side, maybe. But I think he was filling in for someone who was injured, so he might be out of luck next year for an LT spot, but I don't remember. That's off the top of my head after the research there. But so I always feel like if you know a guy's real good and you want him, go ahead and take him, even if there's depth at the position, because it's all about minimizing your misses. You want to, every pick that you take that is a solid guy is good for your long-term success of your team. Dennis, I think, is a lot more successful at putting together a team for the year. I'm trying to do that a little more this year in the SSFA, so he would advise you differently. But that's what I've got to say. Dennis, your sound is gone again. Your sound disappeared again. All right. Well, anyway, guys, we wrapped up the offense here tonight. And it took us a couple hours. God bless you if you stayed with us. We'll do the defense sometime in the coming days. We're really enjoying this podcast stuff, and I don't know how many guys are going to watch and listen, but we're going to put a few of these up there because it's fun. And I'm going to say goodbye on behalf of Dennis Crowley. He just told me that he's had a change of heart, and he's very concerned about Russell Wilson's future right now. He's not sure about his moral character. And he's screaming on the video because he can't. No, he loves Russell Wilson, of course. All right, Dennis. All right, goodbye, guys. We'll be on again. For Tom and Dennis, this is good night. Dennis, click to end the broadcast or do what you do. Please don't delete it, and that'll show up on YouTube.